So hi everyone, my name is Pratik and I'll be taking the News Today discussion for 13 September 2025. So as usual, these are the headlines. First, annual licensing policy for opium cultivation 2025-2026. So in this news, we'll discuss how opium cultivation is different from the rest of the agricultural cultivation and what are the regulatory mechanism for opium cultivation. Second, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change grants approval for translocation of 8 tigers. So here we'll discuss the idea behind translocation, several benefits of translocation and some of the challenges associated with translocation. Third, PM launches the Gyan Bharatam portal for preserving manuscripts. So in this article, we'll discuss about the concept of manuscript, the significance of manuscripts, and what measures government has taken to preserve manuscript apart from the Bharatam portal that is recently launched. In the fourth news, SEBI board approves measures for ease of doing business in securities market. So here we'll discuss all the recent measures that SEBI has introduced to improve ease of doing business in terms of security markets. And we'll also take a look at some of the key terms associated with economics. Fifth, Supreme Court called upon center to safeguard home buyers' interests. So here we'll discuss some of the key observations made by Supreme Court as far as real estate sector is concerned. Then we have some quick updates, and then in places in news we'll discuss Russia. So starting with the very first news, which is Union government announced annual licensing policy for opium cultivation for 2025-2026. This topic is primarily from General Studies Paper 3 Economy, but it can also have other application in other subjects, including in ethics as well. For example, there can be a question on whether cultivation of opium is ethical or not. So one thing that you should first understand is this is not a very typical kind of regulator or regulation with respect to agriculture produce. So with respect to opium, you should understand that it is a dual use crop, which means that it has both positive impact and it also has negative effect as well. Therefore, government tries or wants to ensure that only certain section of people are allowed to cultivate opium, and it also regulates the amount of opium that any particular individual is supposed to cultivate. Also, it provides information in terms of which state is allowed to cultivate opium or not. So there are several guidelines, and these measures change every single year. Therefore, there is an annual announcement for licensing. So without licensing, you cannot grow opium. Okay. So in terms of this basic announcement, there are a couple of important development, which is that this particular announcement, it is based on a law called NDPS rules, which is narcotics, drugs, and psychotropic substances, right? So this rules is framed within this act, and as part of this act or this regulation or policy, more than 1.2 or around 1.2 lakh farmers are going to be benefited because of this. This indicates 23.5% increase in the number of licenses that farmers have been given to increase or to ensure the licensing for farmers with respect to opium cultivation. Next, if you look at the other measures that government has introduced through this mechanism, is that the government has incentivized those farmers who have, or those farmers which have improved the yield to a certain extent. They have been given more, or they have their acreage or their amount in which they can grow opium has increased, and those farmers which have not been able to meet their requirement or the yield, their licensing have been reduced, or their area under which they can grow opium has been reduced. So this essentially is based on merit. So depending on the efficacy of the farmer, this regulation or this licensing is introduced or is changed or modified. Then you should also understand that this regulation is applicable in only 3 states in India, and it is only applicable in Madhya Pradesh, second Rajasthan, and third Uttar Pradesh, right? So this is the most important aspect with respect to the news. Next, when it comes to opium as such, so opium is sourced from a crop called opium poppy, okay, which is basically round in color, just like cotton. It is round in nature, and it has, it is like this, okay. And if you cut this rounded part, you get a liquid like substance, right? And this liquid like substance, when it is dried, then what we get is opium gums, opium gums, okay. Now opium, it, the gum part, which is the dried part of this liquid, it essentially contains alkaloids, which essentially means the natural substances that contains the substances which contains nitrogen per se. It has morphine and it has codeine substances. So as you know, morphine is very critical for pain relief, and codeine is used as an ingredient for cough syrups. So essentially what I'm trying to highlight here is that opium has several medicinal properties. Apart from its use in heroin, it has several medicinal properties. Secondly, not only medicinal properties, it can also be used as edible seeds and seed oil. In fact, you may have heard about khaskhas. So it is also sourced from opium only. Third, in terms of global context, interestingly, India is the only country which is allowed or authorized to produce gum opium, which is the dried version of the opium, or the liquid that is taken from the opium poppy, okay. And it comes from UN Single Convention on Narcotics Drugs 1961. In fact, 11 other countries grow poppy, but they do not extract gum, okay. Next, if you look at opium cultivation in India, what is the legal framework? So, as we discussed earlier, it is under the Narcotics, Drug and Psychotropic Substances Act, and it under this act, government permits and regulates cultivation, and it is only for medicinal and scientific use, not for any other consumption. Secondly, in terms of regulation, it is done by Central Bureau of Narcotics, which is headquartered in Gwalior. And it issues licenses to farmers as per the regulation which recently got updated. So it is updated every year, and on that notification, government or the CBN provides various licenses. Next, which this is very important, that farmers must sell their entire produce, right? So they cannot take anything for themselves. It is in fact illegal for the farmers to use any product for themselves. They have to sell entire produce to CBN, but the price is not something that it is negotiated or it can be sold to the market. So neither it can be sold to the market, and neither the price is negotiable. Okay, so this is a very interesting aspect as far as opium cultivation is concerned, because with respect to other crops, there is no such restriction that it has to be sold to a certain authority or not. Secondly, there is also no restriction with respect to other to price cap as well. So here there is price restriction is also there. Then also there is compulsion to sell all the products to CBN or Central Bureau of Narcotics. So this is how the opium cultivation is different from the rest of the agricultural cultivation, right? So now let's move on to the next article, which is Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change grants approval for translocation of 8 tigers. This is basically from GS paper 3, Environment and Biodiversity. So we'll get into the whole idea of translocation, what it is and why it is required. But let us first understand some of the legal mechanism which enables this whole decision. So if in terms of the legal mechanism, it is the Wildlife Protection Act, specifically Section 12 of Wildlife Protection Act, which provides for this provision of translocation of species from one location to that of other location. And here it is basically driven by in which schedule the particular animal is. So if, for example, if the animal that is being translocated is part of schedule 1, in that situation union government's permission is to be sought, and if the animal or the species is not part of schedule 1, then permission of state government is sought. Secondly, after this, NTCA also provides certain opinion with respect to whether it is viable for the species or the animal to be translocated or not. And then finally, approval of MOEFCC is taken. At the same time, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has the power to revoke the translocation process if there is any concern for safety, right? Then as per the plan, what has happened, that 8 tigers, I think 3 male and 5 female tigers are supposed to be translocated from these tiger reserves, Tadoba and Pench, to Sahyadri Tiger Reserve. So now you tell me in the comment section, where are these tiger reserves located? First, tell me where is Tadoba and Pench Tiger Reserves located first. And secondly, tell me where is Sahyadri Tiger Reserve located in which particular state or combination of state. Next, what is the objective behind this move? The objective is to revive tiger population in the northern Western Ghats, which is essentially Sahyadri Tiger Reserve. Now let us take a look into the basic idea behind translocation. So translocation definitely has certain positives in terms of the way in which the ecological safety and balance is maintained, but there are certain concerns as well. So let's take a look one by one. So when it comes to the benefit, it is beneficial for restoring the predator-prey dynamics. So it is always a good idea that predator should not completely overpower or go beyond prey, and prey should not also go much beyond the predators. So in case the predators increase substantially, then it may lead to some situation where the predators will start moving to villages for getting their prey. And when it comes to more prey and less predator, it may happen that the prey will start overgrazing and start entering into other habitated areas. So again, both of them needs to be in a balanced condition. Second, it also prevents human animal conflict because it reduces human tiger conflicts in overcrowded reserves. So if any sanctuary or tiger reserve has enough or more than sufficient tigers, it can be located to some other areas which does not have enough tigers. So this indirectly also reduces human tiger conflict. Third, it also revives the landscape in terms of revives area where tigers were locally extinct, right? So basically it also promotes those areas where tigers were extinct, and for this there are several examples as well where the tiger areas were earlier or tigers were initially very extinct, but then they have now revived. In terms of concerns, there are several concerns. First is that there is protest from the local communities in terms of if some of the tigers which are there in a particular location, they are very much associated culturally as well. So if those are translocated, there are certain concerns from the local communities. Secondly, there is territorial disputes with existing tiger because tigers are a territorial animal. They mark their territories, and if some other tiger comes, then it is inevitably leading to some conflict. Third, there is poor forest management such as prey augmentation, etc., which means that before an animal is introduced, you need to do certain tasks, including habitat modification, including ensuring that the prey which the predator will be able to hunt is sufficient in nature. So in case those aspects are not managed effectively, then it will lead to suboptimal result with respect to translocation. Then, if you look at some of the basic details with respect to Sahyadri Tiger Reserve, location already mentioned here, Sahyadri ranges of Western Ghats in Maharashtra, northernmost tiger habitat in Western Ghat. It was notified in 2010 by merging the Chandoli National Park and Koyna Wildlife Sanctuary. And it is reservoirs, those who are present here are Shiv Sagar Reservoir of Koyna River and Vasant Sagar Reservoir of Varana River. Flora, Anjani, Jambul, Pisa, etc. And in terms of flora, it is abundant with respect to wild dog, leopard, gaur, sambhal, four-horned antelope, etc. So again, you can see that it has enough prey base, right? Right. So take a look at this question, which came in 2017. You can pause this video and attempt this and let me know what is the right answer. Next topic is Prime Minister launched the Gyan Bharatam portal for preserving manuscript. And this particular news is from Art and Culture portion of GS Paper 1. So here, what is important is why this measure has been taken, and under this, what exactly will be done. So this Bharatam portal or Gyan Bharatam portal or mission was launched in this year's budget by the Honorable Finance Minister, who announced this for the survey, documentation, and conservation, right? So basically, we have several, in India, we have around 1 crore manuscript, which is the highest in any country all across the world, right? So we have more than or around 1 crore manuscripts present. But the problem is they are not located in a single place. They are fragmented in nature and they are scattered. So the important thing is that we are able to document them properly. We are able to catalog them properly so that we can harness the knowledge which is mentioned in those manuscripts. Right? So this basically was announced by the Honorable Finance Minister in this year's budget. Then the purpose here is to digitize India's manuscript. Right? So if it is digitized, then it means that it will be centralized and also it will be accessible to a large section of society. Because otherwise what happens is it will be localized in some museum or some center and will be excluded from the other people, right? So it will help in making them easier to access and it will help in preserving the cultural knowledge. So when it comes to manuscript, what exactly they mean, so what exactly they are. So manuscript is a combination of Latin words, which basically is from two words, manu plus script. Manu basically means hand, script means to write. So basically, whatever was handwritten earlier was considered to be part of manuscript, right? That is the literal meaning of manuscript. But this is the expanded version, which is provided in the website of Ministry of Tourism and Culture. And it says that handwritten composition in paper, bark, cloth, palm leaf, etc., which is more than 75 years of age, and which contains scientific, historical, or aesthetic value is to be considered as manuscript. So anything which is there 75 years of age or written in paper or written in hand on paper will not be considered as manuscript, provided it is providing us some scientific thing. For example, any work of Aryabhatiya could be part of your scientific manuscript, or Charak Sanhita could be part of your manuscript. Some historical account could be, for example, Arthashastra could be considered as part of manuscript, right? Or something that provides some important information, some important drawing or something that could be considered as manuscript, right? What is not to be considered as manuscript? Essentially lithographs. Lithographs basically means things which are written on stone. So stone writings is not considered as manuscript, or anything which is written on printed or on paper is not considered as manuscript, or something which is recent is not considered as manuscript. Next, if you look at India's wealth, we have around 1 crore or 10 million manuscript in 80 ancient script. So this provides, and in fact here most of this manuscript is in Sanskrit and then in other languages, which shows the linguistic diversity of our country. And yeah, so here they have mentioned that around 75% of the script is in Sanskrit and 25% in regional languages like Brahmi, Kushan, Gaudi, Lepcha, Mathili, etc. Right? So we have this regional or linguistic diversity is also reflected through the manuscript. Next, what is the significance of manuscript? Now this part is something which is essential from the perspective of mains. They can ask you question on what is the significance of manuscript, why should we preserve them in the first place? Secondly, what are the measures that the government has taken to preserve and protect manuscript? So here we can take these 3 points can be mentioned. First, it provides evidence of human activities, right? Human activities, and essentially they are primary historical source, which means that they can be used as primary source to reconstruct history first. Secondly, they will tell us and they will give us an idea in terms of the kind of activities that human beings were doing earlier, and they will give us a window to various kind of works or social life of the people. For example, we have Arthashastra that talks about statecraft, that talks about how a country should manage its relationship with the other countries, which is continues to be very relevant even in today's context, right? How should India maintain its relationship with the neighborhood? So here we can understand about Saptang theory, or we can also know about how corruption is something that should be controlled by the government, or the impact of corruption. So again, these aspects tell us about various human activities of ancient or medieval period of time. Secondly, it shows devotion of ancestors to knowledge, science, learning, despite centuries of destruction. So they basically are an element of continuity, or they provide elements of continuity and plus resilience. So in terms of science, we have Charak Samhita, Shrut Samhita, right? And then we have various books on astronomy, Aryabhatiya, etc., that indicates that how our pursuit for knowledge existed even in the ancient period of time, how diverse our culture was. Third, it provides knowledge on different aspects of society. So not just natural sciences, we were focused on social sciences as well. So in a way, we were focusing the interdisciplinary way of studying even earlier as well, right? In terms of cultural understanding, political understanding, economic understanding. So here again, you can give example of Kautilya's Arthashastra. So this is how you can talk about that, how manuscripts are important for any country. Apart from that, you can talk about how it is crucial, or it is considered as memories of the world. Or you can consider that it indicates how uh, uh, it talks about linguistic diversity or diversity at large, that different parts of the country had different nature and different areas of inquiry. Then you can talk about it gave an identification, or talk about the various condition of women, right? Or social conditioning of people. So you can mention all these aspects as part of importance of manuscripts. Then if we have to talk about what other initiative apart from the one that recently was taken by the government, we can also mention other aspects as well. For example, National Manuscripts Mission, NMM, which was launched in 2003 by the Ministry of Tourism and Culture, basically to locate and preserve manuscripts, right? Because we had, as we discussed earlier, that manuscripts were located in several parts of the country. So we wanted to have a centralized location or a repository of the manuscripts, and then we wanted to preserve them so that it is available for the people as well. Secondly, there was National Library of India, Kolkata, which has 3,600 rare and historically important manuscripts. Then a very important and in the pre-independence era development, which was Asiatic Society of Bengal. It was founded way back in 1784 by Sir William Jones, who undertook digitization of ancient manuscripts. So essentially, manuscript was collected from several places, and then it was uh, investigated and it was analyzed, right? Next news. SEBI board meeting approval or approved various measures for ease of doing business in securities market. This is from GS paper 3 economy, or it can also be from GS paper 2 polity if you are talking about SEBI as a regulatory institution, okay, or as a statutory body. So as you know that in India, the context here is important for you to understand that recently there's a trend that foreign portfolio investors are taking out capital from India, and it has seen a very huge number. This capital outflight has been a huge number, and therefore the government is taking initiatives to assure the foreign investors that it is easy for them to invest in India. And as part of this, government or SEBI has further introduced certain reforms so that the foreign investors can easily invest in India. And as part of this initiative, the SEBI has undertaken several measures. So we'll take a look into this. So as part of this initiative, SEBI has introduced single window automatic and generalized access for trusted foreign investor, which is called Swagat FI framework for improving investment friendly environment and reduce regulatory complexity. So essentially this is the whole idea that the a lot of investors have complained that it is very difficult to invest in India because of the compliance burden, because of the red tapeism, because of all the files and all the things are not in a single place, so they face a lot of problems. So because of that problems or the issues that have been flagged by the investors from time to time, several measures or several reforms have been taken by SEBI through this meeting. And let us take a look at some of the changes. So SEBI, in the SEBI meeting, first thing was done, as I discussed, that Swagat FI framework has been undertaken, which is a single window portal for FPIs and foreign venture capital investor, right? So foreign portfolio investors and the foreign venture capital investor essentially will have a single window through which they can channel or fund, or they can provide their investment. Secondly, there is an India market access platform, which basically a digital gateway for entry and compliance. So this basically improves their compliance burden. So every time, so whenever you want to invest in any country, there are certain regulatory mechanism that you are supposed to follow so that the government identifies that you are not someone with a vested interest, and the money that you are going to spend is for some bona fide purpose. And for that, you need to comply with certain regulatory mechanism. And for this, what government has or SEBI has done is that it has provided a digital gateway for entry and compliance, which is again a very positive aspect. Third, the RIETs, which is Real Estate Investment Trust, have been reclassified as equity. Earlier, they were part of AIFs or Alternative Investment Fund. So alternative investment fund are essentially a different kind of fund. So general form of investment is either your stocks or your mutual funds, okay? They're traditional, they're predictable, but their returns that they get are also not that high. But the alternative investment fund, this can be venture capital. So venture capital, as we discussed earlier, venture capital, or maybe a REIT, earlier. Now it is changed back to equity. So essentially they provided different way in which the investors could invest, right? So venture capital is for some startups, early stage startups, okay, which have some potential. Then it can also be for some social causes, social sector initiative, for infrastructure as well. So again, for various purposes. Or here, so in alternative investment fund, some private investors money or capital is pooled together and invested in a specific class of assets which are not that traditional in nature, right? So here again, what has happened is that the SEBI has reclassified REITs as equity, which means that it is now going to be more predictable in nature. It will boost mutual fund investment in real estate, right? Then IPO norms have been relaxed, easier listing for large issues. So what is IPO? IPO is initial public holding or offering. So what happens in it? So whenever a company starts or lists itself for the very first time, it releases IPO, within which the uh, public can also buy its shares as well. So this process for large issuers or large companies have become simpler in nature. So by this, it means that the larger companies will be able to list their stocks in an easy manner. At the same time, there is more time for minimum public shareholding. So in general, what happens is that if a company is launching an IPO, and it's a big company with certain market cap, let's say it is 1000 crore or 1000 crore market cap. So in this case, the company has at least say a minimum of 25% share from the public, or it has to be retail stakeholding, right? Which means that only to 75% can be bought by some institutions, right? So it has to be, this is ensures that there is some sort of transparency, and public also have some sort of chance at getting investment in this particular company, right? So this process has again became it has been made more friendlier to the larger companies. Next, there is a new AIF category. So as we discussed, that AIF basically means that alternate investment funds, and there are several categories of AIFs. It can be class 1 or category 1, category 2 or category 3, but we don't need to get into that detail. But what you should know is that there is one more category, which is accredited investors only schemes have been now launched by SEBI, which is basically for HNIs, which is high net worth individuals with higher risk tolerance. So basically, it has set the table that those who want to take more risk, yes, you are also welcome to come here, but for you, regulation will be under new AIF category. And what they have done is, for REIT, earlier it was part of AIF, it is now moved to equity, so that more funds can be diverted to the real estate through the mutual fund route. Okay. So these are the changes which have been done. Again, it is very technical topic. So what is important here is not to know all these details. What is important is that you know the specific terms, whatever is mentioned here from the prelims perspective. So if you look at the question this year, UPSC, in fact, prelims 2025 itself, I'm not sure if it was from prelims 25 or 24, but this was a question that UPSC asked, right? And here there were two statements. First was that RBI mandates all the listed companies to submit a business responsibility and sustainability report. So what do you think? Is it correct? So this is not correct because it is mandated not by RBI, but it is mandated by SEBI. Secondly, BRSR makes disclosure in the report that are largely non-financial in nature, which is correct, because here in this declaration, it is mostly ESG, or environmental, social, and governmental or all these aspects. So it is not totally, or it's not about economic matters, it is about non-economic matters, mostly about the social sector impact, okay, along with environmental impact. So here only B will be correct. Next, also take a look at this question. With reference to investments, consider the following: bonds, hedge funds, stocks, venture capital. Which, how many of the above are treated as alternative investment funds? So I have already discussed this while covering this topic. So now let me know which one is the right answer here. Next topic. Supreme Court called upon center to safeguard home buyers' interest. So here this topic essentially is an intersection of GS paper 2 polity, because there is involvement of rights, and it is also part of GS paper 3 economy, because a specific sector is being talked about. Real estate sector is being talked about. So we'll need to know that both areas, or in both of these subjects it can be asked. So what exactly happened here? So Supreme Court in this has essentially talked about or provided a lot of suggestions to prevent the liquidation of viable residential projects. So let me just break it down to you. What exactly is the news? So you may have heard this concept of dual burden when it comes to women, right? Dual burden. So when it comes to women, dual burden essentially means that not only they have to work and perform at their work responsibilities, but they also have to take care of the household responsibilities as well. So in a way, she suffers from dual responsibilities or dual burden. Similarly, a person or a middle class person who has invested in or their substantial income for getting a house in the future is also suffering for dual burden. What is that dual burden? On one hand, the person, he or she is paying EMI for the loans that he has taken to buy that house, that dream house. The second burden that he has is he's still paying rent for the current house. Now imagine a situation when the EMI that you are paying is and ultimately what happens is that the house which is scheduled to be completed in 5 years take 10 years, 20 years, or even it take 30 years to complete, because of several regulatory issues, or because maybe that the constructor or builder, whatever who were responsible, they had not lived up to their promise. Then what happens to the home buyers? So because in order to protect the interest of the home buyers, Supreme Court has now taken some of the matters at its own hand, and has given or sought certain suggestions from the center, and given some suggestions as well to prevent or to protect the interest of the house buyers. So this news is about this. And here Supreme Court has said that right to shelter in India is part, or is to be recognized as a fundamental right under the broader ambit of right to life under Article 21. So as you know that in Article 21, it is mentioned that no person shall be denied right to life and or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. So initially the right to life and personal liberty was very much literal in the sense that your right to life or personal liberty could be deprived by the state provided there is a procedure established by law. This was held in the AK Gopalan case, but later in the Menka Gandhi case, Supreme Court expanded this notion and held that not only there should be a law, but the law should be fair, reasonable, and just in order for it to deprive the life or personal liberty of any citizen. And from time onward, Supreme Court has further expanded upon this right, including providing environmental rights, or for example, in the MC Mehta case, Supreme Court held that right to living in a pollution free environment is also part of your fundamental right under Article 21. Then there was also expansion of right here with respect to empowerment of women, and also with respect to the civil liberties in terms of decriminalization of homosexuality. So the point is that there has been continuous expansion of Article 21 to include several aspects of domain as part of right to life and liberty. And this is the recent trend with respect to the broadening or expansion of right to life and personal liberty. So under this, what the Supreme Court has mentioned. So first, let's take a look at the challenges in the housing sector. What are the challenges? So recently, I was watching a podcast of Nitin Kamath with a very famous economist, and in that he mentioned that one of the reasons why there is problem of housing in India is because we have undersupply, right? And more importantly, there is regulatory problems as well, right? So not only we have poverty or issues of supply problem is there, and also whenever there is supply, there is issue of regulatory challenges as well. So if you look at some of the challenges in such, so first is there is shrinking supply, and more importantly, the affordable home sector has reduced from 50% to close to 17%. Now then you'll see that most of the homes which are being provided by the builders are very much in the luxury category, right? For example, in Gurgaon or in Bangalore, most of the apartment complexes are highly luxurious in nature, but they ignore the fact that there is a high section of society which cannot afford such places, and therefore this supply for the affordable homes is declining in India, and this is the extent of decline as we can see. Secondly, there are projects which are stalled, which are not no longer operational. Why? Because of several financial mismanagement, regulatory issues, etc. And here the number is that 5 lakh plus units, which is a significant amount across 44 cities due to financial mismanagement. Then if you look at the land prices, it is also extremely high, and top 10 cities occupy just 0.2% of India's land mass. So most of the places where it is being constructed is only here. Next, this and this are interlinks, regulatory hurdles, non-uniform RERA rules, and across states. So RERA essentially is about Real Estate Regulatory Authority, right? So this is the authority which was constituted, I think, in 2016 to ensure that buildings are constructed on time and it is transparent in nature and the home buyers' interests are safeguarded. But the problem is different states have different RERA standards, and it's very difficult to understand various compliance mechanism within this. So at times it becomes very difficult for the builders to follow their guidelines, and because of that there is no objection certificate is not provided by the RERA authorities, and this also leads to a lot of stalled projects as well. Next, what is the suggestions given by Supreme Court? First, Supreme Court has suggested that we need to have a revival fund via National Asset Reconstruction Company Limited, which is NARCL. Plus, we also need to expand SWAMI, which is Special Window for Affordable and Mid-Income Housing Fund. Now, this can be useful for stalled projects, which is stalled because of financial problems. In this cases, we can utilize this fund, which can be used to revive those stalled projects. Secondly, there can be a corporate body which is a dedicated body for the stalled projects only, which can oversee the management and working of those stalled projects. This can be in the line of NARCL. Right, in terms of that. Then uniform RERA rules, which essentially would standardize the rules across the state so that there is less compliance burdens, there is clarity and more adherence to the rules. Fourthly, there should be some judicial oversight as well. There shall be a committee that could be constructed under the retired High Court judge, and it can seek certain inputs from Niti Aayog as well, which can oversee some of the important matters under real estate, right? So these are the guidelines or suggestions that the Supreme Court has given to ensure that the real estate sector is revived in the country. Next, let's start with the place in news. So in the place in news, we have Russia. And why it is something we are discussing is because a powerful earthquake struck the Kamchatka Peninsula, which lies between Bering Sea and Pacific Ocean in the east and Sea of Okhotsk in west in Russia, right? So if you look at the political features of Russia, so in the places in news, we discuss the political features and the geographical features. So in terms of the political features, it is located in across two continents, in Asia and Europe. So it is not just in part of Asia, but also in Europe. And it is the largest country in the world. Bordering countries are Azerbaijan, Belarus, China, Estonia, Finland, Georgia, Kazakhstan, North Korea, Latvia, Lithuania, Mongolia, Norway, Poland, and Ukraine. Okay, so these are the countries. This is Europe, and then you have Central Asian countries, you have Asian countries, and other countries. If you look at the geographical features, the major mountain range include the Ural Mountain and Altai Mountain. In fact, Ural Mountains basically separates it from, or sorry, the Caucasus Mountains separated from the Asia and Europe. Highest peak is Gora Elbrus, which is also the highest point in Europe. Major rivers are this Yensi, Angara, Amur, Irtysh, Lena, etc. Major lakes are Baikal, Ladoga, Onega, Caspian Sea, etc. And Serbia, which occupies 3/4 of Russia, is dominated by taiga forest. So this is the kind of flora that you need to understand here. Now let's move to the quick updates. Here, the first news is with respect to personality rights. So recently, in fact, today itself or yesterday itself, the Delhi High Court has passed an interim order which has protected the personality rights of a Bollywood actor, Abhishek Bachchan. So recently, Aishwarya Rai Bachchan has also secured personality rights, and before that, Amitabh Bachchan had got personality rights, and then Anil Kapoor had also sought the personality right or got protected its personality right. So, what exactly happens when someone gets personality right? This means that now any commercial entity cannot use the voice, image, or any attribute of that of that personality without their consent or without paying them sufficient monetary compensation, right? So this is to ensure that their uh, intellectual property rights are not violated. And this essentially personality rights basically encompasses an individual's exclusive control over the commercial use. So commercial use cannot happen without the explicit approval of the personality, and including their name, their image, their voice, behavior, and other attributes of their persona. In fact, if you know that in Anil Kapoor has patented his signature uh, traits as well as part of his personality right. And then in India, personality rights are not defined by a specific statute but are protected through common law, Article 21, right to privacy, and various intellectual property rights. So essentially, when the K.S. Swami came or judgment was given, then a right to privacy was also part of or given some sort of expansion under Article 21. Next, New York Declaration. India has voted in favor of UN General Assembly resolution that endorses the New York Declaration on the peaceful settlement of the Palestine issue, first, and second, the implementation of two-state solution. Okay. So this declaration is about two things. First is it peaceful settlement of the Palestinian issue, and secondly, about the implementation of the two-state solution. And India, this is not something that India has been saying it for the first time, but India has in fact been following the idea of two-state solution for a very long period of time, right? So this is not new, but India has also called for peaceful settlement of the Palestinian issue, which this resolution was essentially moved by France and Saudi Arabia. And this declaration essentially calls for immediate ceasefire in Gaza and establishment of Palestinian state. Because we already know that Israel is a state, but Palestine doesn't have enough recognition from a lot of countries. Therefore, this resolution will help in establishing the state of Palestine. So, in order for a state to be established, not only it needs to be a land, people, and some sort of government, it also needs international recognition. And this recognition will help them establish the state of Palestine. Then, secondly, it also involves disarmament of Hamas and its exclusion for government. So basically, Palestine has two major players. One is Palestinian Authority, which largely go by the peaceful means of governance. And there is also Hamas, which basically operates from the Gaza area, but it is more of a terrorist organization, or it uses violent approach. So the point that they are mentioning through this declaration is immediate disarmament of Hamas, which is the violent organization, and its exclusion from governance, and to give the reins of governance to the Palestinian Liberation Authority, PLA. Normalization between Israel and Arab countries in line of the Abraham Accords and collective security guarantee. So this is all about the New York Declaration. Next, M Kisan. M Kisan, basically it reached nearly 3 crore, 3.8 crore farmers across 13 states. And this is a very important application of use of AI in tech, or AI for use of technology in aid of farmers, right? So what is M Kisan? M Kisan is a SMS portal that enables all the center and state government organization in agriculture and allied sectors to give information, services, advisory to farmers in their language, preference of agricultural practices, and location. See, you may have heard about the term called agricultural extension. So basically, agricultural extension essentially means sharing of best practices with the farmers, and there are several recent developments which happens with respect to agriculture, which can benefit the farmers a lot. So not only the best practices, but also alerts in terms of disasters, in terms of forecasting of monsoon. So we know that how unpredictable the monsoon has become recently with the onset and the delay of monsoon recently. So because of this M portal, all these information can be disseminated to the farmers, which will help them take proactive decisions for their crop cycle and help them in terms of their practices, and will help them understand the message in the language that they understand, right? So this has several linguistic choices as well. Then it is in mobile phone. So it also means that even if internet connectivity is not there, it can still be accessed by the farmers. It is under Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. Next, this is about the recent development with respect to Prime Minister's visit in Manipur. And this is about Barabi Sarang link. So Prime Minister has recently or just inaugurated the Barabi Sarang broad gauge railway line, which connects Mizoram's capital Aswal to Indian railway network for the first time. This has, I think the whole budget was more than 800 or 8,000 crores, and it's a architectural marvel in the sense that it led to, or it had in led to several construction of tunnels and bridges, some of which are even higher than Qutub Minar. Okay, so this is a very important development as far as integrating the northeastern India with that of the so-called mainland India is concerned. Now, what are some of the importance that this will have? First, the rail connectivity will ensure timely and reliable supply of food grains. So it will lead to food security. It will ensure fertilizer security and other essential commodities, thereby enhancing overall logistical efficiency and regional accessibility. Second, it will also improve access to hospitals, universities, markets, thereby strengthening educational, cultural, and economic ties. Right. So there are several multiplier benefits that can happen because of this access to railway. Next news is on cicadas. Interestingly, cicadas have made a comeback in Kerala's Silent Valley National Park. And one trivia, why Silent Valley National Park is called so. It's called so because earlier they did not have cicadas. Cicadas are basically insects, right? So a group of conspicuous means very apparent or very uh, easy to observe group of insects which mostly occur in warm and temperate biomes, and importantly, they have an exceptionally loud sound, basically more than 10 decibels or even more. They produce in most species by the rapid buckling and unbuckling of drum like timbals. So, essentially, what really means that the cicadas are insects that produce a lot of noise. Okay. So, initially, they were not found in the Silent Valley National Park of Kerala, and that is why it was called silent, because there was no sound from the cicadas, right? But recently they have been observed again in the uh, Kerala's Silent Valley National Park. So there have been a lot of speculation as to why cicadas have been witnessed again there. So in terms of a lot of this, a lot of theories have been advanced. One of the theories says that they have always been there, but because of some other reasons, such as climate change, they may have not been there. But not because, again, because of climate change and because of some sort of changes in the biomes, maybe they are again coming back to this, right? So whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, there is the jury is still out. There is no concise understanding of whether it is be advantageous or not. Still, it's an interesting thing that is going to unravel. Next, if you look at the question, so there was a question from cicada as well in this year's or prelims of 2024, and this was very simple one. The organism cicada, frog hopper, and pond skater are. So you just have to identify whether they are birds, fish, insects, or reptiles. So I'm sure all of you would be aware now of this question. Next topic is Aedes-borne viral diseases, ABVD. Recent studies highlight outdoor fumigation has limited effect in controlling ABVD. So basically, we may have seen during the monsoon that several places in Delhi or wherever you stay, you may have seen that government starts fumigation practices or start spreading a lot of fumigation or fogging in certain rain soaked areas, right? So the basic purpose, as per a recent report, it has mentioned that it has a limited effect in controlling this ABVD, but it says that personal protection and community mobilization are the best ways to protect from this. Now, if you look at ABVD, what exactly they are? ABVD are infections transmitted by Aedes mosquitoes, and the species are Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus. Unlike most of the other mosquitoes, Aedes mosquitoes are active and bite only in night, sorry, only during the daytime, with peak activity during the early morning and in the evening before dusk, right? So this is something that they get activated during the daytime, as opposed to the normal mosquitoes that trouble us during the night. Then these include dengue, Zika, chikungunya, and yellow fever viruses. So these are the diseases that can cause from ABVD. Indian Coast Guard. India recently participated in the fourth Coast Guard Global Summit, where in Rome, and India has given its bid to host the next edition in 2027. Okay. So if you look at Indian Coast Guard, what exactly are their function and some of the important details with respect to them? They were established in 1977 and they are under Ministry of Defense. What are their functions? First, to protect ocean and offshore wealth, including oil, fish, and minerals. We all know that the oceans are a source of oil and other resources, and they're guided under the exclusive economic zones, right? So all of this is protected through the coast guards. Secondly, they assist mariners in distress and safeguard life and property at sea. Third, they enforce maritime law such as UN clause and with respect to sea, poaching, smuggling, and narcotics. Fourth, to preserve marine environment and ecology and protect rare species. Last, to collect scientific data and provide backup to Navy during war, right? So these are some of the missions. If you look at the motto, it is "We protect." Then the last news for today is gold nanoparticles. And interestingly, the scientists at the SN Bose National Center for Basic Sciences have found a way to control aggregation of gold nanoparticles. So what exactly it means is that gold has certain important properties which makes it very suitable for biosensors, right? So biosensors, for example, you may have seen your parents use this instrument to measure their diabetes at their home. So this essentially work through gold nanoparticles because they are very essential for, or very responsive as a biosensor. They react very differently with respect to light. Okay, but the problem is that if they are aggravated, or they are very much together extremely, then it cannot be relied completely. So the point is that the gold nanoparticles need to be together, or they need to be aggregated. That is true for them to work effectively, but they cannot be hyperactively activated or aggregated. So for that purpose, recently a bunch of chemicals have been used, which has been able to control the aggregation. So control the aggregation of the gold nanoparticles, as a result of which their efficacy and effectiveness to be working as a biosensor has improved. So that is the news all about. And if you look at the gold particles, what exactly they are nanoparticles of gold, typically 1 to 100 nanometer in size. They are characterized by photothermal properties, chemical and physical stability. That is why they are used as biosensor, along with the fact that they have low toxicity, ease of surface modification. Then when it comes to significance, as I discussed, it is very useful as a biosensors, but uncontrolled aggregation reduces reliability. That is what the whole research was all about, that they have managed to control the aggregation of gold nanoparticles. Secondly, they contribute to fundamental nanoscience and light matter interaction studies, right? So they also contribute in studies as well. So this is all about news today of 13 September. Make sure that you complete the discussion, and once you have done with the watch the video, you attempt the questions as well. With that, I hope this is fine for you. All the best.